Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Barry Kostrinsky, and this is Artist Talks. Tonight we have Lili White. We do this every Tuesday, 6 to 7 o'clock. The talks will be recorded, and you could see it if you go to my website and look for the YouTube link. We had a great talk last week, and we've had some, great talks. At the same time, we do have a model. Maux Kelly is here. If you'd like to contribute to Mo, you could reach out to me and get her information. And Mo will be doing probably 5-10 minute poses, something like that. So you're encouraged to draw. And again, the concept is, can you draw, think, and talk at the same time? And I'll just say, when I teach painting, we have to do something when we teach painting and have people do a very lightly colored background. And everybody always puts too much color in with the white paint. So I get them using two brushes, one big brush with the white paint and a little brush with, let's say, a little blue. And they have to use both hands. And as a result of that, they're activating both sides of their brain. And it's quite challenging. And as ambidextrous as I can be, one hand is doing it right. The other hand is like a third grader, just dabbing it on. And I think it's an important exercise. It's challenging. So you have the option to draw and to try and think and listen at the same time. And I think it is mind expanding and somewhat challenging. Lili is an artist who works in several mediums. Lili is a talented videographer, a talented photographer, a talented collage artist. I put up an image of her Target series. Lili has a lot of different series. And I think part of recognizing an artist is seeing that they can work on a lot of different things over different times. Not true of all artists, but certainly true of many artists. And so I respect Lili for that. The consistency being the work is consistently excellent or very good. And I think that's very respectful. Lili's a friend I've known. I came up to her once in the Bronx Museum, said hi randomly. It's sort of how I meet people, and I like that. And we've been friends probably for about 10 plus years since that. So I'll let Lili introduce herself. She'll screen share. She's going to show a specific project. And as well, anybody is always welcome to ask a question or share a point of view. Welcome, Lili, and thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me, Barry. It means a lot. And I know you had a gallery in the Bronx, and several times I showed different types of work there, and that was great. It really was. So tonight, what I was going to show is a recent project. And I want to thank all of you guys for coming, because most of you don't know me except for Kristen there. And I appreciate your time. So what I did when we were in COVID lockdown is I could not video edit. I've made many, many experimental movies, and you can see a sampling of all my works if you go to liliwhite.com. That's my website. Just make sure you spell my first name correctly, or you'll never get there. And so when we were in lockdown, I could not edit. My husband was here all the time, so there was kind of no privacy. So what I ended up doing was writing stories. And the story I wrote that I self-published is called Cat Mother. And I also wrote it as a screenplay and as a theater piece. I took a screenwriting course, blah, 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 blah. So right now up in Tompkins Square Library, they have the illustrations for this book. I'm calling it Cat Mother, a picture book with a magical story, because I think the story, it's kind of fun and everything, but I really don't consider myself any kind of writer. I'm not Flannery O'Connor or something of that ilk. So to me, it's hopefully the illustrations are what you would value. So I will start to share these one by one.
Use the share window, the X, and the movement. Top left, top left.
Okay, hold on.
Now share. Now you'll see.
Okay. So I thought I'd give you a rundown of the story. And can you see this, everybody?
Not yet, not yet. Makes me wonder, should we have practiced screen sharing? Oh, there you go. There you go, Lily. We got it.
You got it.
Put it back.
Got it.
It takes a minute. I think you have to put it back. You're not
What?
sharing.
You're
saw it,
seeing an
now it's gone.
illustration. You're seeing an illustration.
Actually,
No.
we just lost it.
Okay,
Do it again.
okay. How's that?
That's better. By the way, somebody
Okay.
I can hear sort of murmuring.
Yeah, that's my husband.
I'm helping.
Okay, so I thought I'd go through these illustrations and maybe give you a few other things if we have time. And I would tell you the story, okay? And about the technique and that kind of thing. So the story of Cat Mother is about Jeannie. She's a 60+ COVID widow. She's an artist. She's childless. She's very depressed, and she lives alone with her cat, basically in her apartment. So this is a portrait I've done of her. And the idea behind this is when she gets depressed, she gets like this black cloud that envelops her soul, so to speak. Now, when I did these pieces, I used a very special paper. It's a craft paper, and you can soak it in water. And I used ink on these pieces, and you can also carve the paper and peel it back. And you can see a tiny bit of that in the left portion and also on the right portion of the face there. So this paper is made to do things like that. So this is Jeannie, and
We lost the
Sorry.
full screen, but that's probably because you just exited the image.
yeah, I'm going to do image by image.
That totally works.
Share the whole screen.
So, what?
Share your whole screen and you'll just be able to open up each image, okay?
Here's the expert.
Yeah, cancel the share. Stop share. And now share again. And share your,
That's the image.
I understand, it doesn't let you share.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
So, okay, here we go. I'm sorry about that.
Not a
Okay,
problem, not a problem.
this is Jeannie's cat, and she loves her cats, and she's allergic to cats. So when she has an asthma attack, she uses her inhaler to level out everything. And that's fine with her because she loves cats so much she can't live without a cat. So in the story, the cat dies. And she decides to go on a vacation to the American Southwest with an old girlfriend of hers. And they are going to go see archaeological ruins and Native American rock art and that kind of thing, because she's really into that. And she thinks this will lift her spirits. So they go out to this motel, and they're going to meet up with a camping trip, a group of people that they're going to camp with. So in the motel room, now you can see this, right, you guys?
Yes,
Okay, so when they're in this motel trying to get somewhere, a big hurricane comes along, and they are trapped in their hotel room. They can't leave it because it's too dangerous to travel. And they start playing with stencils. So Jeannie reaches for the puma, aka mountain lion stencil, and she feels like this magnetic pull. And she thinks it's really strange, and she looks up, and in the mirror, she sees this being who's kind of half cat and half human. And her friend, Amy, who's combing her hair in this picture, does not see this creature at all. And Jeannie knows that this being is called an amandapus. She doesn't know how she knows that, but she does. And the being disappears into thin air. So then Jeannie goes out to, the next day they go out on their trip, and they go to this canyon, and Jeannie has to jump off this white rock. This is her and the amandapus sitting together on this rock in the canyon. And she has to jump off this rock to get onto a specific path that will take her to the ruin. But the rock is angled so steeply that she's afraid that if she jumps down, her feet don't touch the ground there. So it is like a leap, and it's somewhat dangerous, and she's afraid that she will tumble to the bottom of the canyon or be hurt in some other way. And her friend, yeah.
Lily, there's something in this drawing that grabs me more, and I've been looking at a lot of, Asian art, Japanese and Chinese art, and you have something going on where you've defined forms, and then you have another form next to it, and it sort of walks up the canvas. It both goes back in space and it goes up the canvas. And it's a little less directional than some of the other work that you're showing, which is all carrying content. But from a compositional point of view, and from a sort of like, I don't know, eye candy in the best way, this sort of, this gives me a lot to see that I necessarily don't see in a first sight.
Well, now that we've gotten onto that subject, let me just add something to this. So in this scene, what happens is she can't jump. She's fretting about that. And all of the elements around her join in their own little conversation about what's going on. For instance, the clouds in the sky, the grass on the ground, and even the rock itself. And the amandapus appears and tries to coax her into jumping, but she won't do it. And she ends up abandoning this quest and going back up to the car to meet her friend Amy. Amy could not be there with her because her foot is in a medical boot. So she could certainly not leap off the rock. But now that you've said what you've said, Barry, let me put in some other information. So I'm going to go away from the story, so to speak, and I'm going to talk about some of my influences. So when I did a talk at the public library about a week or two ago. And what I did was I told the story, but I also compared it to art history and what I see is relating to this particular work. So one of my favorite influences is Asian art. And this is a painting by Shir Tao. And I like the way it has this figure, very small in the middle. They believe this was a self-portrait of this artist. And I like how he did, this is ink, and I've used ink and in my illustrations. And I like how he described the mountain with these lines. So I think in these works that I'm doing, they're both kind of figurative and abstract. And I see that kind of thing in this particular painting and also in other Asian artwork. And there is another. Okay, I can't find this right at this very second, but another thing that I thought about this is a picture at the Frick. It's called St. Francis in the Desert. I was trying to find the whole image for you all. But in this painting, he has the main figure, like in many Renaissance painting, there's a main figure and they're surrounded by symbolic things. So for instance, this is some kind of medicinal plant. I don't know what it is. And
I will say that painting of St. Francis of Assisi is one of the great paintings in the whole history of painting. And when you see that at the Frick, you can't but recognize it. You know, there was a Goya exhibit at the Neue Gallery. It was a great exhibit, but there was one portrait in there in particular that was like, it's almost like the soul was alive in the face, in the portrait. And something about this, I mean, this St. Francis of Assisi painting, it's a very large scale. And
right.
you know, it really, but it's more than that. There's something in that painting that is not in other paintings that are masterpieces. I don't know what that element is. I don't know if the artist bled into it. I don't know what he did. But I know that's one of the masterpieces of art history.
Yeah, so here's another detail from that there's a rabbit here. And here's another detail. Let's see if, are you seeing this at all?
Not yet.
Oh, okay, wait a second. This is
There it is.
back left portion of it. And you know, it has this shepherd that's actually looking at the audience, and a crane and a donkey, and they all have symbolic meaning in Christianity. So I think that a painting like this, and there's other Renaissance paintings where there's the figure and these other elements around it, is very much related to perhaps what you were seeing here in this piece, perhaps.
In that Bellini, there's something to that blue-green that they use. And in the Mona Lisa, if you ever look at the background, that landscape always gets me. There's that Renaissance background of blue-green that it carries a lot of something, a lot of spirituality, a lot of eye candy. I mean, it sort of reverberates a little deeper.
So then the next thing that happens is Jeannie meets up with her camping group, but she's still very much missing her husband who's dead. And she goes to sleep in her tent, and she has this dream about her husband and an umbrella. So that's what this illustration is about, with reflections of like pine branches in back of the umbrella that are playing off the face of the tent. And what ends up happening is a giant storm comes along and it rips open the tent and blows away her backpack. And her backpack has her inhaler in it. And she doesn't know how she will like live without her inhaler. So she chases this backpack down a ravine in the dead of night and gets lost. And what happens is the backpack, hold on a second here. The backpack blows into a cave, and inside the cave there is a mummy, and the mummy has a jewel, and there's kind of this mystical magical experience where someone tells Jeannie to take the jewel off of the mummy, and she does. So this is my image of the mummy that's in the cave. So she takes the jewel, she gets her backpack, she has her inhaler, and now she's lost. So she meets up with these people, and I wanted to show you this thing. Let's see here. This is a picture. This is a real life picture of a mermaid sequin backpack, and you can draw in this backpack. Somebody's talking. I don't know who.
Let's see, that took care of it.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, they did.
So
Thank you.
this is an actual backpack, and it has sequins on it, and you can draw into the sequins and make designs like I did here. So one of the things in the storybook is that this mermaid sequin backpack changes and presents drawings at different times throughout her adventure. I can't tell you everything about her adventure, but she ends up meeting a group of men who are ranchers, and they are fighting over land, all claiming that it is their land. So two of them befriend her, and they tell her that if she wants to return to her campsite, that she needs to go down this slot canyon, and it'll be at the end of the slot canyon. So this is my image of the entrance to the slot canyon. And again, here you can see there is like both abstract and representational imagery in this piece. And I'll show you another piece that's very similar. And this is how I handled her entering the slot canyon. This is supposedly her as this white being, and she's going to go through this entrance. And slot canyons are, for those of you who don't know, between 12 inches wide to maybe 12 feet wide. So they narrow and they twist, and they can be very dangerous if there's water that enters into them, because flash flooding can occur and you can be drowned. So one thing I'd like to say about this piece is you can see kind of a variety of techniques here where I'm just letting the ink dry by itself on the surface of this page. Also, just directly drawing with ink and making shapes like this kind of eye shape, or these kind of like branchy shapes on the lower right. So what happens, to make a long story short, is she goes down this canyon, she meets people that she likes, but they're very annoying. There's a family that wants to swim in a toxic lake, and she warns them about it. She meets the ghosts of her dead parents, and her father had died from COVID. She brings up like a kind of little mini history lesson about her generation and what that means in the grand scheme of the world that we're living through. And in this particular scene, she realizes after going through this Slot Canyon for a day, even though it was supposed to be a short journey, she's still there and it's night. And she sees a mermaid sitting on a rock, and the mermaid dives into the sand as if it's water. And obviously the lands out west were all seawater or lagoons or something of that nature at one time. So the mermaid dives in and she sees hydras, which are these very strange creatures that you think that scientists think that they could perhaps be the closest thing to immortal, because their cells are constantly reproducing. And the only cells in a human that reproduce that way are embryonic cells. So this little section of the story considers what it is to be immortal, as Jeannie is contemplating suicide because she's just tired of everything. So that is how that is juxtaposed. She meets a family. Let me see if I can show you. Oh, let me show you this to backtrack a bit. This is the full painting of the St. Francis piece. So you can see him, the plant is here. In the background was the other shot, and the rabbit was by his hand here. So you can see this.
I think
fully.
part of the thing about this painting is we identify with St. Francis and we're thrown into his scale, and he's sort of amazed by what's around him. And so I think that's how the painting sort of gets us, because we become that subject, with that arms that he's doing. It's sort of an enlightening moment.
Yeah, that's a good observation, Barry, I think, regarding this. So, okay, back to our story. So I'll show you another photo I have if I can find it.
By the way, the story you're telling, Lily, this was a real experience, correct?
They're all real experiences from different people. So it's like a composite of things. And when you're out west, there's things like, if you're in certain places, there's ancient pottery. For instance, this is a cup handle. You're not supposed to take these away with you. You're supposed to leave them there. And you can find stuff like that. And it's very, it's wonderful. It's like a wonderful experience because you feel that you've walked the same place that ancient people have walked. And that's part of the thrill of it for a lot of people. Now here, this is a shot I took inside a Slot Canyon. So you can see how it narrows down there. And this was a family, doing their selfie thing. So this gives you an idea of what that's like. And I also have an image of, just so you don't think that, only some people are could be interested in this. This is an ad I saw on television. So I taped this off my TV, and it's for a drug that helps your joints as you age. And this woman is walking through a Slot Canyon. So this shows you how great this can actually look when when you have a Hollywood type budget to shoot there. It would be a difficult shoot. So that's another thing I showed in my library talk. So you may see that commercial yourself. So anyway, she goes through the Slot Canyon. She's feeling suicidal. She meets a family, and there's a little boy, and he believes he wants to be a wizard when he grows up. And his father chides him about this and makes the child despondent. So there's a scene with that in it. And the men are working on fixing a radio from the 1940s that ran with crystals in it. So Jeannie uses her jewel to make the radio work. And the story they hear on the radio is about Trump building the wall on the southern border and how he's desecrating Native American lands. So I'm just presenting this.
It's an aside, Lily, but in this slide, you can't help but notice how these rocks almost look like the Sphinx and in front of one of the Egyptian
Right.
pyramids.
Right. So she leaves the child and the adult males and the radio, and she exits the Slot Canyon. She's finally out of it, and she's in this place called Goblin Valley. And this is an image from Goblin Valley. And she just decides that she's really had it. Like this theme of like her contemplating suicide runs through the whole book. So here she decides she's out of water and she's just going to fall asleep because that will be an easy way to die. So she goes over to this mound. This is like compacted mud forms out there. She goes over to this mound and she falls asleep, and it comes to life. And it turns into the camel. And the camel's name is Ella. And Ella's mission in life, coming to life, is to save Jeannie from suicide. So she convinces Jeannie that her art form as Ella the camel is she gets enough water in her hump and she can like become like this performance artist. She can move the hump around, she can make it change colors and that kind of thing. And Jeannie finds this fascinating. And that is how Ella seduces Jeannie into visiting a spring with her and getting some water, which Jeannie drinks. So they bond over the fact that they're both artists. So then after Ella has okay, I think I did that wrong. Sorry. So after Jeannie drinks some water, she's moving along and she has this philosophical discussion. And the Amandapus appears to her. And the Amandapus is this creature on the right. This is supposed to be Jeannie in the middle. And then a puma appears. Also throughout the story, Jeannie's aware of a puma. Like she sees its tracks, she sees its eyes glowing in the dark, stuff like that. So in this scene, she dances with these creatures and they all philosophize about, you know, should I live? Should I die? What's life all about? There's those typical questions. So they get into this wild frenzied dance and then it starts to rain again. So they disappear and Jeannie has to find shelter. So she sees these kind of mud-like caves, like what you just saw with the camel. And she goes into one of them. See if I can find this picture. She sees these kind of mushroom-like mud forms, and this one kind of has a cave in it. So she goes in to get out of the rain, and she's in this very cramped situation in there, and an animal appears at her door. And the animal is a porcupine. And the porcupine character is kind of like a guru who talks about her dilemma and gives her some pointers about maybe how she can cope with life a little bit better. So the porcupine's name is Rosette, and they're peacefully getting along. Jeannie's at first afraid of the porcupine because she doesn't want it to like stick her with its quills. So they bond, they go to sleep, and Jeannie has a dream. And the dream has her two aunts in it. They appeared in the book earlier when she was talking with her, the ghost of her mother. So in this dream, Jeannie is holding this very, very tiny salt cellar. This is an actual object from like the 1960s. It was from the Morton Salt Company, and it was labeled personal salt, and you could bring it with you on picnics and stuff instead of bringing something glass that would get broken. So this was made out of paper, and they sold them during those times. And Jeannie's dream is that she's holding this salt cellar and water starts flowing on the floor. And then her aunts are there and they're pulling her away, yelling and trying to warn her about something. So Jeannie wakes up and sees that there's water seeping into her, into their cave, and she and the porcupine exit the cave. She's carrying the porcupine in the magical backpack, and the water is rising higher and higher, and she figures if they can make it over to this nearby mesa top, they'll be saved. So what happens is this magical net, which I call the uniting field, aka the quantum field to some, or the unified field to David Lynch, envelops the two creatures, Jeannie and the porcupine. And Jeannie changes shape. First she's a fish, then she's a bird, and finally she's a puma. And she's made it to the top of the mesa and saves herself and the porcupine. That is the climax of the story. And then the next day, Jeannie heads down to say goodbye to Rosette the porcupine, who's here on the lower left. And there's birds that are like flying around them. This is like a magical moment where they bid each other goodbye. And Jeannie looks up into the sky and she sees the eyes of the Amandapus, but also the Amandapus eyes turn into puma eyes. And this particular image is what I used for the book cover, but that's what's happening in this scene. And I tried to make this section that is below the nose of the cat into a COVID mask. So it's kind of like a mountain, but a COVID mask at the same time. So Jeannie makes it back to her campsite and meets up with Amy, and they're going to leave town the next day. And when she's driving down the road to get to the airport, they see a house cat run across the road. And the house cat looks like a miniature mountain lion. So she sees this as a sign that the spirit of this cat has protected her throughout this dangerous adventure that she's been through. And then she goes to the airport, and when she's at the airport, hold on a second, sorry, I'm sorry about that. When she's at the airport, you know, you're surrounded by these glass windows, and she sees the tail fin of an airplane, and the tail fin is slowly going by her, and on the back of the tail fin, on the tail fin itself, is a drawing of a puma. And there are airlines, Frontier Airlines puts animals on their tail fins. So she sees this and she thinks this is another acknowledgement that the spirit of the cat has helped her. And on her backpack here, she has a heart shape and an infinity sign that's kind of growing out of the heart. So she's reached a certain acceptance of life and goes back home, and that is our happy ending. Thank you.
You know, I will say, when you see, you know, Carl Jung spoke about synchronicities, and when you,
Yes.
when she sees that in the plane fin, he doesn't explain it except to say that something is linking. You can't really explain it, but it becomes a sign, and a sign to whether it's the spiritual world. You can't really define it, but you know you're on sort of the right track when you see those synchronicities. And so, you know, it's up to us to read in how much we want. Is that, you know, the spirit or what? It becomes hard to define. He calls them acausal relationships, because you can't find a cause and effect going on. It's not a rational thing, but sometimes beyond rational is, you know, reality. And so it's like reality seeping in that we can't understand.
And it is like a definitely real physical thing that you're witnessing. It's not like some hallucinogenic vision. So, and I've heard it said that when you do something like the I Ching or tarot cards or any kind of, you know, you're looking in for some kind of answer or something with one of those things, what you are actually doing when you do the toss or spread out the cards is you are connecting at that moment to the quantum field. And that's how a certain card is going to come up for you, because you're focused on whatever the dilemma is. And that's like the answer or the insight, let's say. So thank you for listening and paying attention. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Lily. Any thoughts for Lily or any questions? You're obviously a storyteller, Lily. And does that play out in your films?
Well, it hasn't until now because they're very like abstract, you know? I mean, there may be some kind of narrative that you put together with some kind of like dream logic type of thing. But I haven't worked with actors. But in the screenplay I wrote, obviously, this would be a new venture for me to work with actors and have like a narrative story. But I must say that before I came to New York, I did do some live theater pieces with actors. And they were like this type of thing, you know, and we had video and music and dancers and all that kind of thing. Back in Philadelphia, I did like 2 or 3 shows on a stage. So I guess I'm revisiting that to answer your question.
Lily, when you were younger, what kind of art did you make, or how did you start your interest in videography? I'm always, I find
Well,
artists tend to do things when they're younger. I also find that the themes they do when they're younger often carry through to when we're mature artists.
well, I was the first television generation. So I used to watch shows and become deeply involved in them. Like a lot of Westerns were popular when we were small, you know, so they're out West. They all have some moral point to them. And also I was into fairy tales, and I had this fairy tale book of Sleeping Beauty, and there's 12 fairies in it. And in the illustrations, like the artist was very, very descriptive of like how they held their hands, you know. And I noticed this as a kid. And I would also like play out with the kids in the neighborhood. I was the film director, and I made them enact whatever like Western or Tarzan show or something I had seen. But also, my parents had this Bible, and it had all these paintings from the Renaissance, like gigantic pictures of them. So I got to see art history when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and it wasn't lost on me. So I think, you know, for me, it's kind of equal parts still image, but also like moving image with those two things. And they both kind of happened at the same time. And when I did go to art school to study painting, I made Super 8 experimental movies then. So I was doing kind of two things at once. But I never formally studied film or filmmaking.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Lily White.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Barry. Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
Yeah, I think it helps to flesh it out when we have to present our art and speak about it. And, as much as we know it from our inner voice. But when you actually have to say something, you do hear yourself. And it is hard to summarize or say things. And so I think it's a good skill, this sort of practice. As well, I find it challenging to draw and listen at the same time. And I know when I'm in the right groove drawing, I'm listening very deeply. And I know when I'm drawing and I sort of think I'm doing a line as opposed to doing a line, then I'm not listening. So I think it's, if you're in the moment, you can take it all in and it can all feed itself. And likewise, if you're out of the moment, you're not taking anything in except maybe replaying something in your mind. So similarly, for us to speak as artists about our work, I think it makes it a little more realer, or at least it makes us learn how to speak. We do have an interesting talk coming next week. I didn't look it up, pardon me, but it is on the website. We have a few different artists lined up. Obviously, it's holiday season, but do go to the website. Thank you, Mo, for modeling as always, Maux Kelly, our volunteer model. If you'd like to contribute to Mo, you can reach out to me and I'll give you her information. And of course, thanks everybody for their time. Keep in mind, I'm happy to share anyone's art on my website if you'd like to, drawings that you've done while watching the Zoom. I like that sort of tightly packed theme. I'm happy to do that. And I think we should come up with a uniform price for everybody's, which I think is pretty easy to do. If anybody wants to send me an image, we'll figure it out from there. Thank you. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Just one quick question. Is it canned cranberry sauce with the lines in it that come out of the can, which is like sculpture in itself? Or is that illegal?
That's
Is it-
illegal.
That's illegal. But don't you think that sculpture, if you just pull it out of the can and it's got those lines, it looks so artificial. It's like a Jeff Koons. It's a Jeff Koons ready-made. Basically. I guess this is an artist group. You guys make
Ideas.
We're going homemade. We're going homemade cranberries.
Yeah.
With oranges in
With
it.
some orange zest, cooking in some orange juice, and yeah.
David, how about you? What are you doing for the holidays?
My cranberry sauce has cloves and pearl onions. It's more of a relish kind of thing.
Savory, more savory.
Yeah, a little both. So anyway, I'm always an orphan at Thanksgiving, so it's always the funnest part of dinner being the orphan. So anyway, no, that's the dish I'm doing.
Well, being a divorced dad, I know that feeling. I'm sort of orphaned from my family. I'm very happy that my kids spend time with my wife and they're all together. I get a lot of joy out of that. No, with my ex-wife, sorry. Well, I will be with my current wife and her uncle, and we
Your
will
first
have,
one.
yeah, I won't be with my first wife, the ex-wife, ex, it's sort of like the X-File wife. But I will be with Kathy and I'll be with her uncle, and we're in for a 2-hour monologue, which is really hard to take, but that's what we get from Uncle Fred. I hope he doesn't watch these on tape, but we do drive to the city.
But we love him anyway. Right?
Yes, it's sort of part of the variety.
Plugs in.
How about you, Michael? What are you and Wendy making?
Well, I was thinking about going to the parade in the city.
Oh, wow.
We're trying to deciding now whether it's worth the crazy ride home. But
Yeah.
I've never taken. Last time I was there was 30 years ago. So
It was nice and 30 years ago.
yeah. Well, if you go to the 80s, I think if you go up to the 70s or something, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, we would go the night before when they're inflating the balloons up by the Museum of Natural History. And there's no one there. It was great 30 years ago.
I don't know what it's like now.
Now it's a mob. Yeah, the night before. Anyway.
But I'm gonna make cranberry sauce. I'm excited. You guys got me inspired me to make cranberry sauce. I'm gonna make that a challenge.
I just made it today.
Oh,
I made cranberry sauce for 20.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some with nuts, some for people who are allergic to this and like that and like it sweet and don't like it sweet. Everybody's particular.
Wow, you're very accommodating, Lori.
Yes. I got vegan stuffing in the bird, stuffing out of the bird. Everybody's particular.
Oh my goodness.
That's great.
20 people.
Well,
That's
have a
lot.
wonderful time.
Okay, well,
I
thanks.
have to
Yeah.
go. I'm actually taking a Jungian philosophy class. So,
Oh, really?
Very
yeah.
cool.
So I must go right now. But
Okay.
good to see everybody.
Nice to see
Okay.
everybody.
Okay,
Always
bye-bye.
nice. Happy
Thank you so
holidays.
much, Barry.
You're
Bye-bye,
welcome.
thank you.
Thanks, man.
Goodbye. Anytime, buddy.
Dalai Lama is speaking at 2:30 tomorrow. Or